We just knew that we had to do something. We didn't know exactly what we were doing, but we had an idea of how to do something, and we knew that we could do it, that we can do, right? And but I think that one of the things that gave us a lot of security is because we were very young, and that does sometimes give you security. But we had great role models, big role models, huge stars, like Ricardo Montalban and Rita Moreno and Hector Elizondo and Anthony Quinn and Jose Ferrer. So we knew that they were there to back us up, even though sometimes you didn't see them. So I think that's what gave us a lot of the strength. And we would go into the studios.
But you were gangster back then.
Well, yeah, because you have
You were gangster. You were a gangster.
We just knew that we had to make a difference. We needed to make a change, and sometimes even at the expense of costing us sometimes an interview. Ricardo Montalban, getting blacklisted, and Rita Moreno for speaking out. But we don't compare ourselves. Well, I don't compare myself to them, but we needed to do it, and we knew that we could make a difference. And sometimes we would take on Lou Wasserman, whoever it is, Charlton Heston. Like you could be Moses to the rest of the world, but you're like. To us.
And also the other thing is that when we all came from New York, and in New York they never said you're Hispanic, you can't play a Caucasian role. Most of the commercials or TV or anything I did, it wasn't a Hispanic girl. Even when I got back here, might have had a Hispanic name, but it was different. So in New York, we could do anything. Once we got here, all of a sudden we're Hispanic, and so then you had to fight even harder for what you had already gotten in New York.
We took on the unions also because they also were very racist, and they needed to have a little shake-up, and we just shake them up. And we started threatening their candidacies and their position, because that's what I learned early in life, that if you start threatening them in their positions, not physical, okay? I want to make that clear. Even though in the old days,
removed,
they'll be removed, and they have nothing else,
yeah,
and they hate to lose that. So we did whatever we had to do it, but we always did it with respect and nice, and I think that's what they saw.
All this young Latino talent is a force to be reckoned with and a force to harness for the growth of America. We're not thinking big as a country anymore. North America, Central America, South America should be economic kingdoms and creating opportunity and all these things. We start to think about build a wall to keep them out. I remember a president that once said, we're going to the moon. And we did. That was America that I love.
We had another president who said, tear the wall down.
Yeah, that was Ronald Reagan. And he understood walls don't work. The walls have never worked. Walls are a monument to racism. It's a dam. Eventually, the water's going to go through that dam. Eventually, we'll fail.
So I've always been an activist, right? I went to a lot of protests as a teen. And then when I finally got to New York, at first I was working a lot with the Polish Solidarity and Solidarność in the 80s. And then moving into the nuclear disarmament rallies that we had in New York, I was on that team. I translated all the flyers. And I just continued to be interested in what was happening politically. And I think it's just in my DNA. My mom's Puerto Rican, so she's just innately political all the time. And my dad is Cuban, although I wasn't raised with my dad in the home. As a small child coming from Cuba, politics was a really big deal in the household. I was just always had that inclination, and I don't know that led me to volunteer my time and actually run an election to get elected to volunteer my time for the Screen Actors Guild, and the new union is SAG-AFTRA. We merged it. I was getting very strange newsletters from the leadership, the member leadership at the time, because the union works with members, member leaders, and our staff. I just found it really strange, and I don't know what I was doing in 2008, but I got a check from a job I did, and there was no raise in it. So I called the union, and I was like, I got top of the show for this, but why am I being paid this? It should be this. And sure enough, the contract, I hadn't realized. I had been reading a little bit about negotiations having been stalled and problems with AFTRA and SAG. And so it was like 8 months and we had no new contract. And I was like, wow, that's horrible. And then coincidentally, the following year, L. Scott Caldwell called me and asked me to be on the Screen Actors Guild EEO committee And then I wanted to be on the women's committee too,
And
so
the
she said
E&O
okay.
committee is
The EO committee is
EO committee.
It's not equal employment opportunity, which is what most people associate with those initials. It's the ethnic employment opportunities
Oh,
committee.
okay.
I did. I joined those committees, and then they asked me to run as a candidate for a group that I think has transformed the union and that are really, truly great leaders, and that was with Unite for Strength.
Here we have produced over 500 solo artists from around the globe, offerings in the schools, LA Unified School District, over 3,000 youth. We have had outreach programs to senior citizens, ex-offender women, low-income artists, at-risk youth, you name it.
What made you want to just do women?
There's enough work, I think, for men. Statistically, they have more work. Television, film, stage, I mean, it's just the truth. And we felt that we needed to make sure that we took care of ourselves as women and that we were empowered and that we have our own opportunities and that we would not have to wait for the telephone to ring from an agent. We could actually do our stage work.
I remember people saying, agents and casting directors, saying to my face things like, Native Americans and Latinos are the bottom rung on the totem pole, don't expect anything. That's the kind of attitude I got. People telling me to have my nose made thinner, dyeing my hair blonde, wear whiter makeup, try to fit in that way. And assimilate. I only played one Native American role on Lou Grant because my hair was really long and I don't know why. And I said, this doesn't feel right. There were all these women who were extras who were so much righter for my role. And I said, one thing I am not is Native American, and I'm just not going to step into their territory. That's for them, and I don't have the cultural authenticity. It was a well-written role, and it should have gone to somebody that it's a name-building kind of role. It was a political piece. My brother, my family, and I have always been very politically involved, and I love the idea of positive messaging. And I just decided from very early that if I'm given the opportunity to play a role from any culture, I'm going to do it with dignity. I really didn't gravitate towards the roles that didn't have that.
We needed to get the actors in front of those casting directors, in front of those producers, because we didn't even know where the studios were at sometimes. We were not allowed to go into the studios. We didn't know the people. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Your talent comes afterwards. We made a commitment that we were going to get you into that front of that door, and then it was up to you to sell yourself. We said, we got to get the casting directors in one room where we could bring 20 or 30 of them. I mean, we had like 40 of them sometimes. Like, whoa. They were there, and a lot of people got jobs. And then we told them all we need is give them an opportunity to showcase themselves. And if they're qualified, then you'll hire them.
The first week I worked on it, the second AD was giving us blank timesheets. So they would, and we were doing incredible overtime. And I'm thinking, and the film was a favorite nations project, which meant you don't get paid regular. And then to add insult to injury, they made it a minority favorite nations project. So you got paid even less than the favorite nation.
What? Can you describe? Can you tell our audience what is favorite nation? Some people may not know what that means.
Favorite nations is usually done, or back in the day. I don't know about today, but back in the day, it was usually an ensemble piece that maybe a studio was doing it out of love, and they weren't really paying. Everybody got the same amount of money, no matter who it was. But what they don't tell you is that everybody gets the same amount of money in the front, but the stars have deals that they get a percentage of the film, or they get a producer credit, or, they're getting a perk. They're not just coming in doing it for $50.
That's right.
Thank you very much. Either they think the film is worthy of nomination, that the script is all that and a bag of chips, and they're willing to bet the farm on it, but they're not just coming in and going, oh yeah, I want to do this for $2.50. No, they have an end result that they're trying to get. Back then didn't know any of that, but I learned. And so I got in a lot of trouble on that film because after I got my first paycheck and I saw that there was no overtime, I called my agent. I said, hey, we did 18 hours a day or 16 hours a day. And I had written it all down because from my first job on Hill Street Blues, and we had a horrible second AD. I was schooled by the extras telling me, you need to keep a little notebook of your hours, when you come in, when you leave. If you have wardrobe, if you go for wardrobe, you need to write it all. If you give them your clothes, if you use your clothes. So they really taught me well to go forward with every other project, knowing the business. You know, I'm an actress, but I'm the CEO of my company.
That's
so
right.
I have to be ready. So so when I got my first check, I called my agent, and then my agent was like, well, don't make trouble on that set. I was like, it's too late. It's too late. It's too late. They mess with my
I already
money.
opened my mouth.
They mess with my money.
They mess with my
And
money.
so when I came back, I was ready. I was waiting for that second AD. And sure enough, she came and she asked me to sign a blank time card. I said, no, ma'am. I said, you write down my hours and then I will sign it. As a matter of fact, we are due for meal penalty.
Every actor should be working on their own content, especially in this day and age when you have a smartphone and a computer or a laptop. You could be doing your own projects instead of just waiting for the phone to ring or waiting for somebody to call you back with a job. Start working on your own projects. You can put it up on YouTube. You can put it up on little websites. If you like that idea, then I got a little booklet for you. I got some tricks and tips to help you get your content going. So all you have to do is put your name, your email address, and I will email you back with that booklet. What do you say? Go for it. It's free.
So what we do is we help independent filmmakers. So to be able to work with us, your project has to have an element of diversity in a positive light, okay? Or something that if you have a diverse cast, you're highlighting an issue that needs, solving. We also help a lot of women directors because, as you know, extremely underrepresented. Yes. We work with the LGBT community, African American, any underrepresented groups in front or behind the camera. So we're sort of a team for hire for filmmakers. There's really not a lot of resources for filmmakers. So we believe that the way to transform Hollywood really is to support the independent filmmaker who's already doing it. They just need somebody to believe in them, to teach them, to coach them. Hey, this is how you do a successful crowdfunding campaign.
These filmmakers are sitting on these projects for 5 years, 10 years, literally. This is what they tell us. I wrote this 10 years ago. I just haven't had the outlet to do it.
Or they keep hearing no.
Yeah,
no,
they can no. They meet with us, and just a couple of months later, they have $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in their account ready to make their movie. It's not just the Latino community like Fanny said, it's LGBT, African American community. That's fine. We're not part of that community, but it doesn't mean it doesn't matter to us. What it is for us, it's equality for all.
You can try to be different all you want, but you get on the subway in New York, you are smelling different smells, you are seeing different dress styles, you are seeing beards, you see payasses on the Orthodox Jews, you see turbans on the part of Sikhs, you see kufis on the part of Muslims. I mean, you see things that are different, and you begin to accept it as normal. Diversity becomes a beautiful thing. What we're hoping is diversity becomes inclusion as well. The inclusion of diversity is important also. But in New York, you can't help but begin to understand that you're all one.
The city of Los Angeles has individual grants, a COLA program they call it. They also probably have other programs that can be applied for. The LA County Arts Commission, the California Arts Council. Every state has arts councils. So if you're in a state other than California, you can Google to find out who are your city art councils, your counties, your state, NEA, that's national. So a lot of the work can be done by going online. And then if you're interested in doing colleges and universities, you can go to my biggest market was the National Association of Campus Activities.
Also
So
known
by
as
going
NACA.
there, that's right. So by going there, I was able to do both regional conferences, national conferences, and people were able to see my wares, and colleges and universities could then come to my booth when they had booth hours, and from there we begin the conversations, and then hopefully a booking would take place.
Back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, maybe there was a lot of things happening, even though there was some infighting, but there was a lot of communication. Now we're not communicating because we think we know it all because there's darn little phones that we have nowadays. I don't know what she's doing. I don't know what you're doing. We're not communicating, and they want to do it themselves, and they go to interviews, and they're not getting the help. They're not getting the connections, and we need to start doing them. We need to start meeting again.
What I've learned is that really in our business, that where the power starts is in those stockholder meetings at those studios. That's where it is. It's not even about the producers. The stockholders dictate what kind of projects they want to see, and then the heads of the studios start turning. Okay, you want more women? You want more women in action adventure films? Let's get more women. Because by the time we get the scripts, it's already almost a done deal. But if you can take your money and invest in stocks in the studios and go to those stockholder meetings, that's the power.
Stockholders are very important, and they do wield a lot of power based on the business. But the change comes from revenue. It's what film made the money. Why did it make the money? Black Panther right now is at the top of its game. It's the most, it grossed more money than any other film in history. Mm-hmm. And not because it was black.
Because it made the money.
Because it made the money, but it made the money because it was a movie for everybody. See, we keep forgetting.
Right. It was universal.
Exactly. You sat there and you wanted to be that
Same
hero.
Same thing with Crazy Rich Asians.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Perfect. But now they're at the table because now they want to repeat that. This is the one thing about this industry. Oh, that works? Oh, we got to get ours. We got to get ours going now.
We've lost a lot of perks over the years through the union because they've built a union for younger people. And because the Amazons and the Googles, the new media, they're starting at a very low entry level. And that's a new actor. If I were 22 years old, I wouldn't care if I got $50 a day or $1,500 a day. I mean, I'd want to work. I want a resume. I need experience. But when you become, veteran actors, I want my perks. I will not get in a honey wagon. I'm not going to drive to Santa Clarita at 5 o'clock on a Friday to read for a supporting role. Right. And the thing that bothers me most, I can get in a room and walk in and see this. I can see, Bert Rosario. I can see all these guys. And I'm looking around the room, I'm going, this is disrespectful. You can hand this role to anybody in this room. Correct. You just make them an offer and you've got gold. But we're still competing for the small pieces. Yeah. So, I told my agent years ago, look, I'm Tom Cruise. I had to tell my agent, no, I'm going to say no. So don't send me out, to Santa Clarita on a Friday because I'm not going.
I asked them if I could have a powwow in their lobby. And I invited the senators, the assembly people, the city council, the board of supervisors, anyone from Hollywood who would show up, Moctezuma Esparza.
But what gave you that thought to do that?
I felt like bringing everybody together and making a pact to have each other's back.
Okay.
That was my intention. A lot of that movement was happening at the time. And then at one point, I felt like I need a future after acting, so I want to learn how to direct. So I went to Luis Aira, who was directing a lot of commercials. He had the Pepsi Cola account and music videos, and he was a hot director and had his own company, Big Antenna. I said, teach me how to direct commercials. Let's start there. And I said, you know what? Let's do a PSA. And we did a PSA. And I got the money for it from Antonio Gonzalez from Southwest Voter Registration Education Project. They financed it. They said it got 1 million Latinos registered to vote for the 92 election. And then we did another one in 94, and I got 108 Latinas in a 60-second spot.
Wow.
Luis taught me how to put like the face perfect on camera, and then just, it's been copied now a lot after that. We had everybody. We had Jennifer Lopez, we had Raquel Welch, we had Gloria Molina, we had everybody that I knew, Dolores Huerta, Cesar's granddaughters, a lot of people were in it. So when we finally had these products, I had a friend named Patrick, and he was the executive director of Rock the Vote. He since passed, but I called him and I said, I've got 2 Latino spots. And he said, the networks aren't really running Latino spots. I said, look at them. He looked at them. And he called me back and he said, we have a master reel that is going to the 9 states with the highest population of Latinos, and we're going to include that in the master reel. So they were kind of our distributor. And after that, people started making. Then Luis and Southwest Voters did a lot more of these PSAs. We won 2 Clio Awards as best spot.
That's fantastic. Congratulations.
So, yeah, but
That's
it was
beautiful.
early. It got 1 million Latinos to register to vote in the 92 election.
Beautiful.
Basically, it's just help each other, make calls for each other, be there to help. But I think for filmmakers and artists, actors, is that support your films. The films that are out there. It's very important that you go there the first week and the second week, but mainly the first week. That's when it really counts.
The first weekend.
I mean, it's your first week counts. It's and it shows the power that we have and have to deal with.
Those first 3 days are crucial.
Yes.
Show up. Stay up and show up. Be consistent. Try to avoid impulsive behavior. Try to avoid just punching somebody in the face. And I did that on the regular. It cost me jobs. It cost me reputation. I stood for my honor. And I do not suggest everybody doing this. But I learned to show up. I have a friend of mine in LA who tells me all the time, you've got to show up. You've got, no matter what you feel, your feelings control too much of what you do. Show up and be disciplined.
Politically, I think we each have our talents. You know, I find that it's very important that each of us find our personal way to help save our democracy.
Read as much as you can. Investigate and research as much as you can. When you don't research and you don't investigate, you have no right to speak. Travel. Travel everywhere. Travel now while you're young. Go to every country that you ever dreamed of. And I don't care if they're white countries, African countries, subcontinental countries, South Asian. Go and find out what the world is like. A lot of us know nothing about Tahiti. We think we know Hawaii because it's a tropical paradise. We don't really know the history of Hawaii, and if you did, you'd cry at what they've done to that people. We don't know Nicaragua. We know Cuba because Cuba fought for its independence in 1959, and so a lot of us have gone there. But you need to go into the hinterlands of Cuba, not just Santa Clara or Matanzas or La Habana. You need to know Puerto Rico. Your neighbors may be Puerto Rican, and you may know them, and you've known them all your life. But have you gone into the hills of Utuado, Ajuja, Morovis, Ciales? That's where you, Moca, Hormigueros, that's where you need to go. You need to go to Cabo Rojo. See the people, see the richness of the culture. It's not just San Juan and Ponce. Have you gone to Czechoslovakia? Have you gone to Serbia? Have you gone to Austria? Have you gone to Germany? Get to see those places. Japan. I have a friend of mine, a trombonist, who just married a Japanese wife, and he's living in Japan and doing well. We need to go to China. Let's begin to travel and become world travelers so that we can begin to speak the language of diplomacy as we take power.
I think that the organizations out there that are doing a good job, but we need to bring in the grassroots, old style of working, and help groups get started, maybe as the grassroots group from Malbec or from National Council of Raza or whomever. We're too busy in banquets. We're too busy, and that's what hurt also nosotros. We were spending a lot of our monies in banquets. 80% of our budget was, that's why we stopped the Golden Eagle Awards. I think we need to refocus in what was our mission, why we started, where we're at. And I've been talking to some leadership, people. Maybe we need a national convention, a national conference of all the leaders that started the movements, or whatever movements are out there. Say, where is it that we started from? Where is it that we have taken it? Where are we going and where we're at right now? Mm-hmm. And then bring in the young people. I think that we have lost connection. We have disconnected with the young people, and I think that we need to reach out to them, because there's no reason why a young people or a young group cannot reach out to the national organization. You can't get to the national leaders anymore. That's unheard of. That's ridiculous. We need to bring them, and I tell them and I call them out on it. You need to come back, and the young people, they have to recognize that if you're older, sometimes you don't want changes, and the young people want changes. And like we all want changes.
We need it.
So we have to come together, and I recommend to the young people, if you do it with respect and you listen, I know you'll win me over, and if you come in with that attitude of listening and respecting and not to admire, to kiss up, just to say, thank you for what you did. I want to continue doing what you're doing. You got my vote.
You have to get people who are not only leaders, but followers. And if you can't follow,
servant leaders.
Yeah, then you're going to destroy something that's not working, that can work, because now you're placing your direction from a directive that was already set, and that's where good business, when you get a good business head on and you delegate and you get people that are going to make your idea better, and not that you have the everything, but there's a way to do that. You come to that person who started it and you say, look, I think we can go in this direction faster, better, but they didn't do that. They just took it. So you need somebody who can set up the machine that says, okay, we're going to push these people a little harder, but you've got to trust each other to stand by and allow that ideological concept to move forward. And but nobody's willing to do that, because I'm an individual. I don't need you. I can go.
But just finding, I think it's just finding that team that is about the vision.
Yeah.
And not about the end. I mean, I think
ultimately it is the individual, because that's who we're fighting for.
Right, but I mean, if you look at Cesar Chavez, it was never about Caesar. Right. It was always about the farmers. Right. It was always about giving them better. He rose because he was about the people. Martin Luther King rose because he was about the people. It was never, that to me is a great leader, is someone who is steady with the mission, steady with the vision, and can keep it going, and making sure that the people that are working with him is mindful of, it's about the vision. It's not about you.
Find the right people, have a mission that's bigger than yourself. It's not about you anymore.
Right.
And you want to keep going. And then also have integrity. And also you have to have trust that the work that you're doing.
Trust in what?
Trust and grace. Every successful person out there will tell you there's a time where there's only so much you can do. You got to really step back and let grace do its thing. Whatever it is for you. For me, it's God, for him, whatever. Just really trust that if you have integrity, you're taking actions every single day, you're doing something that's good, things will work out, but you have to let them.
Be careful with dream killers. People who tell you that your dream is meaningless and it'll never happen. Stay away from them. Drop them like they're hot. You're living in the projects and your mother's on assistance, and they tell you, and you want to go where? You want to go to Germany and hang out? Man, what's wrong with you? You from here, man. You can't go nowhere. Drop those friends like they're hot. get away from it. Whether they're boyfriends, girlfriends, or even family, leave them alone and go travel for you. Find out what the world is like yourself. The most important, if I had to pick something that's most important, read. Read and educate yourself. There's this new trend, I don't need to go to college because it doesn't make any difference anyway. College is not for you to make money. College is for you to understand your rights as a citizen, not only of this country, but of the world, to understand what the precedents are of this world. That's what college is for. To exchange ideas. College is for critical thinking, critical reasoning. That's what it is. Make a decision between this and that. Why should you make that decision? Those are important aspects of the college education. And to socialize with people from other cultures. So I would say get educated and read as much as you can.
Many people think that the United States is the only place that you can perform. Not so at all. You can go anywhere in the world, and wherever you go, there are actors. And wherever you go, there's a film crew. And wherever you go, there's a theater. So you don't necessarily just have to stay here. You don't have to. And many, I remember Tomas Milian. Tomas Milian became a big-time actor in Italy. And many actors, even Clint Eastwood, all these guys actually their career started over there.
Westerns.
It started somewhere else.
Yes.
It's like coming in through the back door kind of thing.
Yes.
But it isn't. Acting is acting.
Well, I think it's that stigma that if it's not Hollywood, it doesn't count, and that's not true.
Not true at all.
It really is about you pursuing your art to the highest form, and if you're not being satisfied in the roles you're getting here, you go somewhere else or you create your own stuff.
Exactly.
Can you just tell us really quick what it's like to work giving back to the community? Especially, I read about you work with juvenile offenders, and why is giving back to you so important to you?
Because that's where I come from.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up where people gave to me. As a kid, we had after school programs. As a kid, I had older people in my neighborhood who loved on us, who took care of us. My mother was a prostitute. My father was a pimp. I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, but there were always people who were looking out for us. Mm-hmm. And I also grew up during the Black Panther period, where it was about, you're making me cry. I grew up where, I grew up, I grew up with Martin Luther King. I grew up knowing, I grew up in Harlem. So for me, growing up in Harlem, I grew up on the border between Harlem and Spanish Harlem. But for me, that was history. Like I was aware that I lived in history. Mm-hmm. I lived in a special place where people helped each other, where people did for each other. Mm-hmm. They looked out for each other. It was community. Mm-hmm. So how could I grow up and not do the same? And when I was working at the radio station, I had all these adults who poured into me. They didn't know me. They didn't know my background. They didn't know how bad it was. They didn't know the fact that coming to that radio station saved my life every day. Mm-hmm. They didn't know the drama I had to do, but these people poured into me. They were the people who went to school and rallied on my behalf with the teachers when I got into fights. My mother didn't do that. My father didn't do that. It was the people at this radio station who took in this kid. So for me, being able to go to the schools and do stand and deliver and talk to kids about staying in school, brown, Black kids, poverty stricken kids, and telling them you can do it. Mm-hmm. That's my mission. Mm-hmm. Acting is my career, mm-hmm. but my mission is ministering to the youth.
Amen.
That's
right.
what I do. So it wasn't rocket science. It was just, okay, let's go, God. What do you want?
What do you want? That's right. Amen.